Hi, today's lesson is going to be on Python objects. More specifically, what is a Python object and how can it be used? Pretty much everything in Python is an object in the sense that they can be assigned to a variable or passed as an argument to a function or method. So attributes like strings are objects. All methods have a built-in attribute, underscore, underscore, doc, underscore, underscore, making them objects as well. So we'll see some examples of that in just a moment. But in this lesson, we are going to cover what is an attribute of an object, what is a constructor of an object, of a class that you need for an object, what is a method in relation to an object, what is a modifier on an object variable or attribute, and what is encapsulation. Let's get started. So what we have here is a function being created called main, and then I just called the main at the bottom. This is going to be the template for all of the lessons for Python. Within the main, I have some print statements that basically just show hello live lessons on the output over here. Let's test that out now. Okay, great. All right. So to get into Python objects, I basically want to use a concept called the shoe. And typically a shoe has like nouns related to it, like a sole, like a shoe sole. Sometimes a shoe can have laces. And from time to time, some shoes are for running and some shoes are for relaxation. So I have a visual aid that's going to help, to kind of understand exactly what we're going to write code on. So what we have here are different types of shoes, from dress shoes to boots to shoes with laces to shoes used for comfort to sneakers with laces. And so on and so on. So basically, this is what our Python object is going to be based upon, a shoe concept like these and the attributes that the shoes have. All right. So to start off, we're going to create a class called shoe. And this class is going to have some attributes. So what attributes do we want for our shoe? Let's go with what is the color of the shoe as, an attribute. Another attribute can be if the shoe has laces. And another attribute can be if the shoe is for running. All right. And basically, these are going to be our starting attributes for this class. So let's go ahead and create the class of shoe. So we have a class shoe, and we're going to have attributes and those attributes are going to be similar to these. So the first attribute that we're going to have is a color. So our color is going to default right now to red. And we're also going to need a property for has laces. So we can say has laces, and by default, we're going to make the laces not exist for a shoe. And lastly, we want to create a property is for running. And this one is also going to have a property of false, or an attribute of false, or a value of false. Okay, so those are the attributes. Moving along, we can create a shoe one here, and it will be based on the shoe. And as of now, this shoe has all of the attributes of red, no laces, and is not for running. To display that, we are going to create a printing function called str, which is basically the string representation of the object. So as of now, there is no string representation of the shoe class. So yeah, so we get main, shoe, instance, and then some reference to the class that was created. And to make the string representation of it, we're going to have to create a method, and it's going to be called str. And the usage of a method inside of a class always has the word self, because it's going to refer to this object or this instance, or itself is going to refer to itself as a single instance. All right. And with that self, we can set the color. To actually, we're not going to set anything yet. We're going to basically just hold off on the implementation of the formatting. I have an example here where I basically return all of the properties with some kind of description in front of it, where it says shoe color, and then it gives it the shoe color reference, and then it also has laces. So let's go ahead and paste that one in there. All right. Okay, so what we have here is a string with interpolation inside of it, where we need to pass some kind of value here to represent this %s. And then we have new lines to kind of make it cleaner and easier to read. We have another property, laces, so that's here. We have the color, the laces, and then we have whether it's for running. And that's going to be the property here. So what we need to do is after the % that allows this interpolation to happen, we basically need to fill this parentheses or this tuple with multiple values of color, has laces, and is for running. And because all of these properties are part of the shoe class, we have to use the self property. So let's go ahead and say self.color and self.has laces and self.is for running. Okay, so I believe this string representation will change from main shoe instance at this reference to shoe color, new line, laces, new line, running, new line, with the color and the true or false values. Okay, great. So we have shoe color, and it's red. Laces, no. Running, no. So this shoe is red, but it doesn't have laces, and it's not for running. Okay, great. So moving beyond that, that is a representation of how the attributes can be saved in a single object or a single Python instance of shoe. So that's what shoe one represents. Next, what we want to do is update the constructor. So we first have to create a constructor, which in Python is underscore 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 init, INIT underscore underscore. So let's go ahead and type that out. It's also a type of function or a method as well. Init. And it's also going to take a self reference. And the reason why we need to create this constructor is because I want to create a new shoe object, shoe 2, but I want to be able to distinguish between shoe 1 and shoe 2. So let's go ahead and say we need a color to distinguish between shoe 1 and shoe 2. And then we can say self.color equals color. Now, what this basically means is the self.color is this color attribute. And this color here, without any self or any other references, is basically being assigned to the internal color because we're saying self.color. All right, so now this doesn't work anymore because it expects a parameter. We can just kind of show the error that shows up whenever you try to use it without passing in the proper attributes. So it says it takes exactly 2 arguments, 1 given. So when we say 2 arguments but 1 given, self is given to the shoe class by default. So that's the one that's already given. And then it's expecting the second parameter or the second argument here. All right, so let's go ahead and make our shoe 1 have a argument of red. And now let's run it. Okay, once again, we have red, false, and false. All right, now for less confusion, I am going to set the color to empty or no value at all. So color equals none means that it's basically going to receive the color later, so we can just set it to none for now. We can set it to nothing, so to speak. All right, and this still works. So let's go ahead and run this. Yeah, we still get the red. So now we want to create a shoe 2. So let's create the shoe 2, and its color is going to be blue. Okay. And we need to print or use the string method to actually display the blue property. All right, so let's go ahead and do that. All right, so we see that the shoe color is blue for the second shoe. Laces is false and running is false. So let's say that we met a shoe designer that said, hey, you have a pair of shoes. Those are really cool, but they would be even better if they had laces. So by default, has laces is false. But the shoe designer says that he wants to, or he or she wants to update your shoe to have laces. So the way that we would do that programmatically would be to say, and the shoe that he wants to update is shoe 1. Let's say that we use the has laces property and we set it to true. All right, so now when we print, the laces property is going to be true, and the designer has successfully updated the shoe 1 to having laces. So let's run that. Awesome. So we have laces equals true. All right. And also the designer wanted to be able to update the color as well. So let's go ahead and say shoe 1. Color equals green. All right. So now when we run it, it should change the color to green. The color was initially red, but it got updated to green through the color attribute here. So let's go ahead and run this. And notice how the shoe color was red before, but now it's green. So, and it also has laces. So basically the designer was successful in updating the shoe to have laces, and we updated, he also dyed the color of the shoe from red to green. And now all of those properties are shown in the console, and it's permanent. It was made permanent inside of the shoe 1 instance. And notice how it didn't change anything inside of shoe 2. Shoe 2 is still blue, still has no laces, and it's still not for running. So moving along to the methods. We've kind of dealt with the attributes in detail here. We've also dealt with the constructor. We've created one method called the string method. Basically, it's a toString. If you're from another language like Java, this is a representation of the object in string form. And the next thing that we should cover is modifiers. So basically, I don't want the color property to be set the way that it was set. I want to create some restrictions on the color. So that's where attributes come in. So basically, by default, all of these attributes are public. But the goal is to make, I want to make the color private, where only the shoe class and any method of the shoe class will be able to change the color attribute. So the way that we make the color private is by using an underscore and another underscore. So 2 underscores to make the color private. And now if we were to run this, this color attribute doesn't exist anymore, and excuse me, and this one doesn't exist anymore either, and this one as well. So we're going to have a couple of errors. Maybe. Oh, yeah, you can't access this. All right. Yeah, so basically, shoe instance has no attribute color. So that's referring to the toString here. So what we want to do is fix this, and now we still have a problem here, but let's call a method of set color. And this method is going to accept the parameter of color, similar to the constructor here. So let's go ahead and create that method here. Set color. It's going to take a self-reference, and it's also going to take a color reference as parameters. And internally, we need to have a reference to the color, and then we can set the color here. All right, so instead of being able to access the color from any file with it being public, now from an external file from here, we'll be able to access this color through the set color property. All right, so now it should change from red to green again. Okay, great. So before, it didn't update the red to green because there was no actual property of color here. So when it said color equals green, it never changed. It never changed the actual attribute of the private color to green. But because we updated it to set color, now it has updated it to green. All right. All right, so that's how the private attribute works. We want to make the is for running protected. Basically, that's just one underscore instead of two, like the private. All right. And we are going to create a method by the name of is for running. I'm sorry, set for running. So let's go ahead and create that method, set for running. It's going to take a self-reference and it's going to accept the value of is for running. And within the set for running method, we're going to call to the protected property of is for running. And then we're going to set it to the incoming value of is for running. All right, so now we should be able to set the running property on the second shoe. So let's go ahead and do that. All right, so we're going to say shoe2 dot set for running, and then we're going to say true. All right, so now currently the second shoe, which is blue, is has no laces and is not for running. But when we run this new version, what is this saying? Shoe instance has no attribute. Ah, that's in the string representation. Okay. Yeah, so basically the blue shoe is now for running, but it should also have laces. So let's go ahead and set the has laces property. No, we're going to skip setting the has laces property. So as of now, we have a green shoe that has laces, but it's not for running. And then we have a blue shoe that does not have laces, but it is for running. Pretty snug shoe. All right. And that covers the modifiers as far as public, private, and protected. That's what they look like here. All right. Now, currently, we don't really know. I haven't really spoken on why there is a protected, but the private stops you from being able to use this property outside of the class that you're representing. The public allows you to use that property anywhere, as you see here, has laces equals true. And let's make another class just to show how the protected actually works. So this second class is going to be called sneaker. And the sneaker is going to be of type shoe. So basically this sneaker class has all of the attributes of the shoe class internally. So it has a color property. It has it also has a has laces property, and it also has a is for running property. But the only problem is that it cannot access the color property directly. It would have to use something like a set color to access the color because it's private only to the shoe class. But it can use the is for running property because that's protected. And that's the whole reason why we have the protected. So let's go ahead and create a new constructor down here for the sneaker class. And this should fail because this color property doesn't exist for the sneaker class. So let's test that out. Yeah. So it says color is not defined. So that basically means that color is either it doesn't exist or is set private in the parent class. And the shoe is the parent class in this situation. So what we can do is call the set color method. So let's call set color here. All right. And now it should not give a problem for the sneaker class creation. But we can access the is for running property. And we can set it to true by default. Not all sneakers are for running, but in this case, we're going to default the sneaker to is for running. All right. So let's go ahead and create a sneaker instance or a sneaker object. Sneaker one equals sneaker. And it takes a color. So let's go ahead and give it a color of yellow, right? And we are also going to say that sneaker one has laces. And because we've already set the is for running property, we don't need to do that again. So let's just go ahead and print the sneaker one object. All right. Okay. Oh, and also, I'm going to do a new string representation for the sneaker class just to kind of show that they are different. Let's see. That won't work because I don't have access. Let's see. Is for running, has laces. So I can access the color. So let's just represent what we can access. So we can represent the laces, and we can represent whether it's running. But the color itself, let's say from sneaker, and then we can call the parents. Let's see. This one, all of this. We are going to need to represent a reference the super. Okay. So let's go ahead and put it on a new line. All right. So basically, we're going to say that this is coming from the sneaker, but we're going to reference the parent. All right. So let's see what we get here. One argument. I need to pass it the color. No. I won't do this. All right. Not right now. I'll come back to it. So basically, the regular two-string of the shoe class can be called. It says yellow for the shoe, and then it has laces, and it's also for running. So we set the has laces property to true here, and by default, the is for running is set to true as well. Let's see, what else do we have? Is that all of what we were supposed to cover? We got the modifiers, we got the methods, and now we know why the protected works and how it does work. We can reference it from a child class with the protected property. All right, so basically encapsulation is the idea that all of these different objects or all of these different instances of the shoe class type, in this case is shoe and sneaker, all of them have their own separate internal properties which are encapsulated within that object. So there are ways to have global properties that are accessible between all of the objects of a class, but that's not what we're covering right now. So basically the idea of encapsulation is that they're all modular and they're all like that's a bad word, quarantined off from one another where, you know, the properties aren't, if I change the property here, it won't change the property somewhere else, basically. Okay. Let's go into some questions. Let's see if I can find some questions. Yeah, I have one that says, what is the difference between a method and function in Python? Okay. Yeah, so basically, the main here, which is not part of a class, it's outside of everything here, is a function. But a method is basically what we have inside of a class. So the class has its own verbs that are related to it, and those are called methods. The class also has nouns related to it, and we call those attributes. And then we create the instance of a class or a object, a Python object, with the constructor. All right, so yeah, so basically methods are different from functions in that functions are not part of a class. All right, I don't see any more questions. So our next lesson is supposed to be on Python data types, like int and string and, you know, all of the different data types. So keep an eye out for that. We also have a suggestions place. Like if you had a question, but it wasn't about it wasn't about Python objects, then you could come here and say, okay, I have a question about, you know, inheritance, or I have a question about using files in Python. You can go over here and you'll be able to make that suggestion, and then that could be an entire lesson on exactly what your suggestion is. On that note, you guys have a good night.